Hi, today we're going to be covering content from Chapter 15. Now, Chapter 15 deals with introductions and conclusions. So we're going to talk about how to make a conclusion or an introduction very strong, memorable, and creative. So let's start with introduction. The first reason why you want to have a good introduction is because it will help you to build rapport with the audience and help them to establish credibility with you. You need to know whether or not you're going to trust that speaker when you're sitting in the audience. And so from the minute that the speaker gets up, they are trying to ascertain whether or not you are a good speaker or if you really know your subject matter. So that's important to do during the introduction. Then you also want to preview some of your main points. You want to go over the highlights and kind of give the audience an idea through your thesis and preview statement where it is that you plan on going in that speech. And then lastly, and sometimes most importantly, you want to capture the audience in a creative way. So what are some techniques that you can use to do that? Well, you can tell a story. That always works. Most audiences love a good story. You could also tell a joke. You can use humor. I would caution, though, that if you are going to use humor, you make sure that it's not offensive to the audience and that it falls within your natural personality. One of the worst things that can happen is for you to tell a joke at the opening of your speech and for there to just be no response. That could be an awful feeling as a speaker. Okay. Another technique you could do is to ask questions of the audience. Sometimes those can be literal questions that you want the audience to respond to by raising their hand, or they could be rhetorical questions where you just kind of want the audience to think about your topic. You want them to think about a certain situation or scenario. So that's another option. You can also use a quotation. If you are going to use a quotation, you want to make sure that it is succinct enough. It is a short enough quotation that people can remember and that it really has some tact and some punch to it. You want it to be something that audiences will really remember and that will connect with them in some way. So that's what basically you're going to do in your introduction. Chapter 15 has some other suggestions for creative ways to begin your speeches. And so I would advise that you read through the chapter and make sure that you have all of the different tools in your arsenal. Then you're going to go through the body of your speech. Okay, so in the introduction, you tell them what you're about to tell them. In the body of your speech, you actually go through and tell them all of those main points and explain them. And then finally, we're going to talk about the conclusion. In the conclusion, you want to sort of signal the audience that your speech is coming to a close. Have you ever been somewhere and the speaker just seemed to run out of what he had to say, and so they just sat down and you didn't realize that was the end of their speech? It's sort of an awkward feeling for the audience. So you always want to signal the closing, and you can do that in many ways. One of the most effective ways, though, is to review your main points. So you would summarize basically, so today I have talked about these different things, or today we've reviewed these different elements. Okay, those are some simple ways that you can signal the audience, and then also review your main concepts. And finally, you want to end with a memorable or creative technique that really leaves the audience almost wanting more and having a favorable disposition towards your speech. So again, you can use the same techniques that you used in the introduction. You can ask questions, you can tell a story, you can use humor, you can do a ton of different things, and again, they're listed in Chapter 15. So, as you start preparing your special occasion speech, give some thought to how you want to start it and how you would like to end it. I look forward to hearing those creative and memorable introductions and conclusions.